and go.
Good morning. My name is Eric Montez. I'm an avid student at Anthony Geary Junior High School, and today we're acknowledging our veterans. So I'd like to start off by asking for you to state your name.
Anthony Jones.
And what branch of service did you serve in?
I was in the U.S. Air Force.
And how many years did you serve in the armed forces?
I served 4 years active duty and 1 year in the National Guard.
And what was your rank?
My rank was Staff Sergeant.
And where exactly did you serve?
I served at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State, in Lake Turkey, Saudi Arabia. I'm missing a couple of places, but you get the point.
Yeah. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
I picked the Air Force because initially I thought I was going to the Navy like some of my relatives, and of course when I went to the enlistment office, they showed me all these jobs. They kept showing me ships and water, and I realized water wasn't for me. Even though I'm scared of heights, Air Force was it for me.
Could you recall some of your first days in the service?
Some of my first days in the service, actually, it was during boot camp, and it was very stressful. You ate when they told you to, you got up when you told you, a whole lot of marching. I was in San Antonio, and we couldn't even shower unless they told us to.
Where exactly did you go to, I guess, for your service, or like boot camp, or?
So my boot camp was in Lackland Air Force Base, which is in San Antonio.
In San Antonio, okay. So what exactly was your job or assignment?
My job was a navigation specialist. It was called guidance and control. So anything that controlled the plane, autopilot, navigation systems, GPS, and flight controls.
Okay. So could you tell me a couple of your most memorable moments in the Air Force?
My most memorable moment in the Air Force was actually my scariest. We were in the Middle East and our airstrip got bombed. And that was the first time it hit me that, hey, I can possibly lose my life doing this job. And so it's going to be a meeting for me.
So how did you stay in touch with your family while you were in the military?
Lots of letters.
Letters.
Yeah, we didn't always have access to emails, and cell phones wasn't a big thing back then, so lots of letters.
Okay. And did you feel a lot of pressure or stress while being in the military?
Sometimes I did, depending on what was going on in the world, and at the same time I had lots of fun.
Yeah. How did you, like, people in the military entertain themselves?
Various ways. We enjoyed the same things that normal society or civilians, if you will, had. We had our bases were like mini cities, so we had movie theaters, bowling alleys, clubs, and all of that.
Okay. So, what did you do when on leave?
Most of the time when I went on leave, I came home. I really missed my family at that time, my significant other. So I spent a lot of time going home on leave.
So, I think you've already told us, but like some of the places that you traveled while in service. And then, so can you recall the day your service ended? My day,
April of 2002 was my active duty end date, and my guard date was around March of the following year because that's the same year I graduated from with my undergrad.
Okay. So what did you do in the days and weeks afterward coming back from the military?
I started student teaching, and then I moved back home to Chicago to begin teaching.
Okay. And you said you did go back to work after the military, and was your education supported by the GI Bill?
Yes.
Okay. So did you make any close friendships while in service?
Plenty of close friends, and many of them, 30 plus years later, we're still in contact and we see each other when we can.
Did you join a veterans organization?
That I have not, and some of my friends are pressuring me to, but I have not yet joined the Veterans Association.
What did you do to go on to do as a career after your service in the military?
I followed my high school passion and became a high school music teacher.
Okay. So did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
My military experience influenced my thinking not just about war, but how the world really works in general. I think many civilians are rather naive about politics and the reasons why our countries are engaged in the way they are.
Okay. So how did your service and experiences affect your life?
It really broadened my thinking in terms of the way I approach the world. A lot of things go on and we think it's so far removed from what we think our daily lives, not realizing that it actually does impact us in ways that we can't quite imagine.
And is there anything else that you would like to add that we have not covered in the interview?
Is there anything else? Yes, if I can go back, I probably would go back.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your answers for us. We appreciate your service, and we will send you a copy of this video once finalized.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, hey, hello there, guys. My name is CHRISTY IRVIN. I'm going to be doing a video for you today. I'm actually a veteran of the United States Air Force. When I got out, I was a buck sergeant, which is 3 stripes on the arm with a star in the middle. When I got out in about 1993, I'm excited to share this experience with you today. And so let's just get started. I enlisted in 1990. My mom did not know that I was going to enlist in the Air Force. I just came home one day and told her, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to be leaving in a few months for the Air Force." And so I prepped to go. Um, I chose the Air Force because of a test that I took called the ASVAB test. The ASVAB basically tests your aptitude in different areas, and I was found to have a strong strength in foreign language understanding. So I chose that branch because they had some jobs that included translation. So I do recall my first few days after I did my um, orientation and I took the oath and swore in, did all my physical strength testing and my medical testing. My first day, I arrived at the base late at night. It was dark. It was very disorienting and it was a little bit scary. But once I got used to things and how things worked there, I adjusted just fine, and I really enjoyed my time there. I served during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War in the 90s. Um, I started my training in California at the Presidio of Monterey, which is the Defense Language Institute. I spent a year there learning to speak Russian and to translate Russian. From there, I went to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, for about 6 months, learning my specific job training. And from there, I traveled to Japan for 2 years as a defense language expert. I was an apprentice Slavic cryptologic linguist specialist, which means that I interpreted code that I heard on headphones that I wore all day. And then from there, I would interpret that code into data based on cryptology skills that I learned when I was in the military. I did have top secret clearance, so I can't tell you exactly what I did with that information, but I can tell you that that's basically what I did. Was I translated numbers and then decrypted what those numbers meant. I love Japan. I missed my family a lot while I was there, but I had some great experiences uh, traveling around the country of Japan into the different areas. I got to go skiing while I was there. I got to travel to Tokyo, and I met a lot of interesting people. Um, so as far as staying in touch with my family, we had a very high phone bill because I would call my mom collect pretty much on a weekly basis. Um, it was expensive, but and through letters, she would always send me care packages with videos of the shows that I would watch when I was still back in Texas. Um, as far as pressure or stress, I mean, I don't think I really felt a lot of stress. I had a lot of friends, so I really enjoyed my time there. Um, so we had this place called the NCO Club, which is the non-commissioned officers club. We would go there on Tuesday nights for Mongolian barbecue. We would go there some nights for different kinds of events that they would have. Um, People entertain themselves by joining different groups. I joined a couple of different singing groups while I was there, and I really enjoyed my time with them. I traveled all over the place. So I got the opportunity to go to Tokyo several times, like I told you. Also, when I was in California, I got to go all over the place in California. I went to the Napa Valley. I went to Seattle. I went to Las Vegas. Lots of great trips from there, all within several hours of driving distance. Spent some time in San Francisco. Got to visit the island of Alcatraz, which was really cool. So my service ended. I got a medical discharge in 1993, so I actually spent just a little under 4 years in the service. Um, one of the things I remember most about coming home was that while I was in Japan, I learned how to drive where the steering wheel of the car is on the right side instead of on the left side. And in Japan, they drive on the left side of the road instead of the right side of the road. So when I got home, I would try to open the wrong door of my car, and I would realize that the steering wheel wasn't where it was supposed to be, according to my memories in Japan. It's one of my biggest memories. I also remember coming back and wanting to go straight to Whataburger. So that's just the thing. When you're out of Texas, you always miss that. So as soon as I got back, I registered to finish my degree, and my degree was completely paid for by the GI Bill, which was fantastic. I was able to finish my bachelor's degree in 1996, and after doing some more work and working for this district, I did go on to get my master's degree and my doctorate degree completely funded by the military. I still have close friends that I stay in contact with on Facebook from the military. I don't see them in person very often, but when we do have get-togethers, it's always a nice memory to remember all the things that we used to do when we were in the military. I am a member of the Veterans Association, the VA, and I'm also a disabled American veteran. I have a 70% disability relating to some of the conditions that I acquired when in the service. I think my military experience did influence my thinking about war and the responsibilities that we have as American citizens. I think it's important that we support our military and the actions that they are completing. Think that the military service affected my life in that I have a lot more discipline that I would have had before. I know before I joined the military, I had a lot of issues with conforming and meeting expectations of others. I now know that I have a responsibility as an American, a responsibility as a citizen to hold up my end of the American dream. I move forward in all of my endeavors with responsibility, with respect, with honor. And I hope that some of you will make the decision to join the military one day because it's one of the best things that I ever did. It changed my life. Everybody have a great day.
Hello, my name is Azure D. Doyle. I go by D, and I was in the United States Air Force from June 1994 until September 2002. I wasn't in the military during a war, but I was in the military after September 11th. So I have a lot of memories from that time. To go back and talk about when I was enlisted, I actually enlisted in the delayed entry program. So I enlisted into the Air Force my junior year of high school, and then I left a week after I graduated high school. So exactly 7 days later, I ended up going into basic training. I picked the Air Force. I come from a military family. All of my uncles and my dad were either in the Army, Marines, or Air Force. And I just chose it because I wasn't into wanting to be a soldier, and I wanted to pick a profession that I could possibly take into the civilian sector if I chose to get out. And so that's why I chose it. I am the only girl that joined the military after my uncles and my dad. I do have some male cousins that have joined, actually a lot of male cousins that have joined the Marines, the Army, and the Air Force. So we basically were a military family. I do recall my first day of joining, and you go to the MEPS station downtown Houston, and that's where you do your weigh-in, your physical, and you do your oath where you are enlisting and sign your paperwork. And one funny story is you have to have they have weight limits or weight requirements for your height. And I actually didn't weigh enough to join. So I didn't meet the minimum in joining the Air Force. And so I had to call my mom, and she brought me milkshakes and bananas, and they said that they would weigh me at the end of the day. And so I needed like 2 pounds. So that day I drank a ton of water. I ate bananas, drank my milkshakes, and at the end of the day, I finally met the minimum, and they were able to let me join and enlist that day. I can't say that I was nervous. I was really sure of my path and that I wanted to join the Air Force, so I really was excited. I was raised by my dad, and he was already, I won't say strict, but we lived very disciplined. So when I got to basic training, what people were typically scared or nervous was, being yelled at, or, the expectations being high. It was some of how I was already raised, so I was kind of ready for it. Some experiences that I have, so I haven't served in a war, but I have had the opportunity on September 11th. I was active duty, and I was actually stationed in England. And I remember the morning of, which would have been the afternoon in the United States, I remember walking from my office. I worked in a hospital, and I did AeroVac. So I did all of the paperwork and documentation with doctors, in putting patients on planes, getting patients off of planes, going to major medical facilities in the military. And I'm walking back to my office, and there's a TV in the waiting room, and I see planes go into buildings. I see it happening, and I thought it was a television show. By the time I made it to my office, which was within 5 minutes, our whole world changed. So the base became locked down. I ended up working 24 hours a day, just taking naps here and there when I could, because we were in constant either putting in reports saying how many beds we had available for, if soldiers, we had to take any casualties into our hospital from Germany or overseas in other places, that we would be prepared. We were moving patients around from different, we did a lot of work with Germany at that time, moving patients, opening beds, so we were prepared for any casualties that we may have. I love doing AeroVac. It was super awesome to meet different people and to be able to provide that service for them to get the health care that they needed, and just meeting the pilots and the nurses, and hearing kind of the stories of places that they have gone and things that they had experienced. One of the questions is in regards to my life, how did I stay in touch with my family? So I was very blessed that my parents would always come no matter where I was stationed. I was in the military for 8 years. And so within that time, I was stationed in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then I was stationed in England. I did a year in Germany, and then I came back to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then to San Antonio, Texas. So all throughout my career, no matter where I was, my parents and family always came to visit. It became their yearly vacations, depending on where I was stationed. There's definitely pressure. Sometimes the pressure is just being away from home. I do tell people there's nothing like Texas, nothing like the United States. You do get accustomed to the cultures and where you're living, but there's just certain things every time I would come home, I loved Big Red soda. So my mom would have that in the car waiting for me. And I wanted Tex-Mex. I wanted Mexican food when I got here. And so there are still those things that you miss about home, but for the most part, you have created this life for yourself in the military, and you understand, the sacrifices that you have to make, and ultimately it just becomes a way of life. Whenever you're in the military, one of the questions is, how do you entertain yourselves? Honestly, we become a little family. So no matter where I was stationed, I always usually started off with who you work with. We become a little family, and we make sure we support each other, and we still do a lot of the same things that we do here. Obviously, whenever we had to go to do trainings, or if we were under like a hostile situation like around September 11th. There's a lot of pressure from the job, but we're still all there to support each other because we all have that one thing in common. We're all away from home. We're all in a different country, and so we're kind of going through it together. I ended up leaving the military after 8 years because I got sick. So I actually had a medical board and was honorably discharged under medical conditions. And the funny part of it is I myself needed medical care that wasn't available at my base. So I did my own documentation and paperwork to get me on an Aerovac, to get me to Germany to have some doctor's appointments. And then eventually I came home and finished that process. And so that's how I ended my career. Let's see, do you recall the day your service ended? I do recall the day my service ended. It was bittersweet because, again, I had enlisted in the 11th grade. I knew this was always what I wanted, but obviously God had something different for me. My medical condition was not life-threatening, but it was something that prevented me to continue doing my duties in the Air Force, and I respected that in the decision, and I knew that's what was best for me and my health. I did take classes while I was in the military and got my associates. And then when I got out, I used my GI Bill and was able to finish my bachelor's degree. And I actually had the pleasure of, while I was going to school and I wasn't working, I was raising my kids, I volunteered at my kids' elementary school. And so that is what ultimately got me into education. So I loved volunteering, and then I ended up becoming a teacher. I still have a ton of friends that are either retired. I still have some who are still in the Air Force and in different branches of the military. And I'll be honest with you, social media keeps us close and keeps us in contact with each other. So that is one major blessing for Facebook and Instagram. And so we keep up with each other that way. And then I do have a few friends that I see that I vacation with and that are close to my kids, and I'm close to theirs because we were stationed together. Another great thing that's come out of it too is that my kids have also, because we live in the state of Texas, we have the Hazelwood Act. So my kids have also been allotted that opportunity to have financial assistance in going to college and attaining their degrees. I'm not involved in any veterans organizations per se. It hasn't been something that I've done, possibly something I should look into. But that pretty much has been my military career and life since then. I tell everyone it was the best decision I could have ever made. It created a work ethic in me that still lives in me. Very disciplined, very organized, and always I feel like my life has had a purpose. So even when my career ended in the military, I got out, I knew, hey, you got to find what's that next level, what's that next step you're going to take. And it was just a lot of things that I think the military instilled in me. So thank you guys for letting me have this opportunity.